Hey guys, this is Oshi, and yes, yet another top 10. Although this is only the top, only one where I actually have top 10 decks. So this is a VR to Nina from Shuffle Tarot. She had a very interesting idea to film another, because of, the only 10 decks hashtag. And this was about decks that you actually used for reading, for either yourself or others. So how I look at these, they are not necessarily my favorite decks, but they were out on my table and they were used for the year a lot. So yeah, I think, this is also another idea, because not the decks that we use for reading for others, for example, is not necessarily a deck that I would put in my top 7 all-time favorite decks. So, another way to showcase a few decks that I like. So I'm not gonna be going in any other order than how they are on my table, because I can't be bothered. I mean, come on, I'm still sick. I need to just rest. Instead, I'm doing what I like and filming videos. So totally my fault. But the first one is going to be the Heaven and Earth, which is one of my winter themed decks. So it's not in its box because it's out on my table actually. And look at that High Priestess. And this deck works well because it's on the more traditional side imagery-wise. So people are, my experience is that people don't really get hung up on the images. Ooh, even if, it's that or the tower, maybe. But and what I mean by that is that I did, because I do one card readings on my Instagram, I pulled and used the zombie tarot at some point, around Halloween, and someone totally freaked out because of the Page of Cups, and I was like, no, this is actually a really good card, you don't have to freak out. So I was like, okay, I can't use whatever I want, because some people just don't, they see a zombie child and they're like, oh my god, this must mean something horrible. When in fact, that was a good card, and, the reading wasn't a bad one. So with most of the decks that I used a lot, they are on the safe side, so to speak. So Heaven and Earth, it doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean the deck is not good or not original or not beautiful. Just it's safer for me to use them for readings where I don't know who the person who's the client is. And I know I'm gonna probably contradict myself with the second one, with the Deviant Moon, but I kind of get, I never had that sort of a feedback that, oh my god, what was this deck? So even if people felt like that, because I'm not saying they didn't, they at least didn't tell me. And I just love this one. And for 3D earthly financial readings, this is still my go-to deck. And I love this Queen of Wands. I love the colors. I don't know, I love the browns and the ivory color. I just love everything about this deck. So yeah, definitely the Deviant Moon is always on my table around this time at least. And even later, I think it's gonna be a permanent fixture. The next one was, like I said, no particular order, I love them all, the Majestic Earth, which is featured in other videos as well, because this is a beautiful one. And, it's safe in that sense that, these are paintings, and most people don't get offended, I guess, if they see a painting, because they accept that this was an artwork, I guess, easier than if you just look at a tarot card, because maybe for some people, they don't necessarily realize that, all tarot cards are artwork as well. I love this star, one of my favorite ones, if not my favorite. It's so mind-blowingly beautiful. And, it reads very well. It's easy to use. It was out on my table around summer most of the time. But, when I'm done with my seasonal sectioning, I guess you could say that, it's gonna be out, or easily accessible. Yeah, that's the word. All the time. Another one, not a surprise. I sing praises to this deck. If you don't mind me, I'm not really gonna remove it from the box, because I just put it back and I'm lazy like that this time around, sorry. But there's a few cards for you. It's beautiful animals, so people don't, you know, it's a gentle reader. I'm not saying that, you know, the messages are not there. Just when you put the tower in, and of course we don't have the tower here, but you know, when we have a 10 of wands like that, or do we have 4 of swords, 8 of cups, you know, these are can be a more emotional, like 5 of pentacles on the more emotional side for the reading, but people tend to react to this deck very, very well. I mean, I keep hearing, you know, how people like it, and they just love getting readings with this deck, and I love using it for, you know, readings as well. So this was out for a long time as well. Can't close it back up for some reason. Another one, which was a surprise for me that I used it this much, because as you might know, I'm not the biggest RWS imagery fan, but the Tarot Vintage is just different enough color-wise, and it's a bit thinner, like narrower, or how do you say that, than a regular. I think this, the Heaven and Earth, is a regular size, so it's smaller and a tad bit thinner, so it's even more easier to hold for me and shuffle. It's just the perfect size for grabbing a deck. I don't know if you know, if that's something you want, but I guess I do. But you know, this is something that people are used to seeing, the imagery, but I still just love how it looks, and I can get more easily past what bothers me, and those are, you know, the yellows and the harsh colors, which I know that they are there for a reason. So I'm not saying, you know, that the original deck has a problem. It's just not my taste in artwork. And when I you know, pull out cards and I stop because I'm like, oh, okay, I don't like the yellow, even if it's, you know, unconscious and I quickly get over it, it just still, you know, stops something. But with this deck, it kind of doesn't bother me, because obviously those colors are not there, and I was able to, you know, how to say that, I was able to not just use it, but really enjoy using this deck. So I really like actually the Tarot Vintage. So if you don't like the original, I would suggest, because before that I had, and I still have the Centennial, but I have the teen version, and I like those colors as well, but this one was a game changer for me. And maybe if you know, not the biggest fan of the original artwork, you should check that one out. And I have a walkthrough, which is one of my, if not the most popular videos, because a lot of people are, you know, interested in this deck. Okay, another one, not surprising, Seer Tarot. My first real, or not real, that's mean, my first more easily readable decks. I could have stopped with this one, obviously. I could have just, you know, stopped using, okay, I still not, it haven't been out since I stopped reading reversals, because this was a summer deck. But it's an easy one. It's diverse enough that people like it. I love the colors, like one of my favorite death cards. And it gives, you know, for me, it reads so easily and so well that this is definitely a deck that would never go out of my collection, I don't think. I mean, there's a lot need to happen for this one to lose its top 5 or currently top 7 position, which is a spoiler for the other video, but hey. Another one, Hush Tarot, which was surprising, but I used it a lot. Maybe people were not the biggest fan, I don't know, never got a response back. But even though, you know, it has pretty, so to speak, in a more traditional way, pretty cards as well. Like, look at that 4 of Wands. I think it's just, I don't know, I just like it. But there are some that could be maybe triggering for people, but or not easily understandable. But I'm like, I'm reading the cards, so I need to connect with the imagery most and, you know, first and foremost, because I'm getting the message that I'm telling you. If you want to get the message yourself, then you should get a tarot deck. So I kind of stopped apologizing in a way, because I just really enjoyed this deck. I don't always, you know, read it with it when I know that there might be some negative response, but for this one, even though it's a very specific deck with its imagery, I don't think I got negative feedback like with the zombie tarot, which was for me surprising, because I think it's a funny zombie deck, so you know, it's not a scary one. But you know, when someone is very nervous about their reading, I guess it's understandable. And we're already at this number 7. Sorry, I wasn't saying numbers, but I will hopefully list everything out in the description down below. And we have the tarot of the Little Prince. I love this deck, and I think it was made so well, and everything was chosen very carefully. I have no idea who and how illustrated. I mean, I know the name who illustrated, but you know how the process went down. But I think it's a very well put together deck. And the Little Prince, not, you know, most people might not even know that they see images from that story, because you don't necessarily need to know that when you see like the Queen of Wands, but it's because there was not really anyone in the book who would be the King of Wands or a King of Wands. So, but there are, for example, the Two of Cups. You would probably recognize that this is the Little Prince and the Rose. And if you read the book, this would read so well for you. And I'm a very, very big fan of this deck. And I'm actually really sad because it's not on my top 7 all-time favorite decks. And I could be doing a top 10, but I kind of want to be very strict with what I have on that list, because that's the whole point. And my collection is not that big, you know. Oh, that was a horrible way to put cards back in a tuck box. I didn't use what I learned from Chris. But yeah, I love this deck, and I use it a lot during summer, and it reads well, and it reads well for others. And now to Oracle decks, and one of them is, no surprisingly, the Sacred Destiny Oracle. It complements every deck that I ever used. It's not my absolute favorite art style, but it reads so well. It's visually and just how it works, it complements everything and all the deck. Like seriously, it's one of my favorite one. Look at the purity. I could use it with everything and everyone, and it would work, because it does work. I tried it with so many decks, pretty much all the decks that I have. I already tried it, and it always gives off really easy and, I mean, easily understandable messages. So, and you can get a lot out of, you know, the keywords. The keywords are great. The cardstock is great, and I just like this deck. And it's funny because I normally I don't think I would have ever gotten this just based on reviews. So I'm very glad that this was something that I actually won. So it, came into my collection. And the last one is, I know that, it's my deck. So you could be like, oh, of course you include your deck. Look at that. But of course I do, because it reads well. I mean, I created it. I know what it says, even though it surprises me because, it changes meanings. Of course, if it's used in such a setting that there's a new meaning that you can draw out of it. I'm proud of it. It reads well, and it suits most of the decks that I used it with. I don't think I ever had a problem. Not most, all of them. I don't think I ever had a problem pulling from this deck and not getting a message. So, yeah. It shuffles well because I like that. fear, haha, and prepared. And even though it's a zombie deck, so you could be like, okay, it's, you know, it's seasonal. For me, it's not, and I heard from other people that they said as well that they keep it around because it reads well, which is just makes me really happy. So yeah, here you go. These are my top 10 working decks for 2021. I'm quite curious what my list is going to be next year. I think I'm gonna keep up and do this list again, because I have quite a few decks that I just started using, so I don't know, you know, how they read or how often they're gonna be out on my table. And obviously I will have new decks because let's be honest, I will have. There's already a few that's on my on their way to me now, so I'm quite curious. You know, a year is quite a long one, so we will see. But I hope this was useful in a way that it makes you think about doing the deck. And you know, I'm gonna link Nina's original video so you can watch hers as well. And if you do, you know, a response, please do let me know. I'm trying to keep up with hashtags, but lately with all the vlogmas, I'm behind with, you know, hashtag videos. So please just, you know, comment down below if you're doing it, like, subscribe, do all those things. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.